The highly anticipated patch finally is going to be launching tomorrow on April 15. In this video, I am going to give you a brief rundown on the classes, like a quick guide on what is it that they are going to do for you. And I'm also going to be doing a little bit of a basic theory crafting on the builds that we are going to be uploading here on the channel, because that's going to be one of our main focuses from now moving forward, making builds for each individual one of these new subclasses that you are going to have in the game. And let me tell you, I already have like pretty crazy ideas on how powerful and broken some of these guys are going to be, especially the Sorcerer, but we're going to go into detail about that. First, let's talk about the bot, the College of Glamour in here. What this guy is going to do is basically the bots have always succeeded on CC potential all throughout the battlefield. That's going to be furthermore increased with the Mantle of Inspiration, because the Mantle of Inspiration is going to give your allies temporary hit points. The cool thing about the Mantle of Inspiration is that if the enemies hit your allies that have the Mantle of Inspiration, they deal damage to them, they have to bypass a saving throw for them not to be charmed. And if they do not bypass that saving throw, they are going to be charmed, and then you can use the Mantle of Majesty so that you can command them to either flee, move closer, freeze, drop the ground, or one of my favorites, and I think that one of the most powerful things that you can have in here, especially with some very tough enemies, to drop their weapons. Remember that you can make enemies to drop their weapons, and if they have like very cool weapons, you can just start using them, using those weapons before the fight actually finishes. And have in mind that sometimes these weapons are very powerful, epic weapons, that they are your reward for killing that specific enemy. But you can get it before you fight them, downgrading the enemy that you're fighting, and at the same time getting that huge boost for your characters. That's actually kind of amazing. Then we have the Path of Giants Barbarian. This guy has the Giant's Rage, which basically gives you more strength, and everything about the strength gets buffed in here because you can jump to higher grounds, you can throw more heavier things to things, dealing them more damage, of course, but also you have more weight capacity. And having this guy in the Paladin means that you do not have to be looking out for those giant heal strength potions anymore, because you have them as a base skill. So this is by all means something very powerful. And then we have the Cleric Death Domain. This is basically a Necromancer. What I love about this thing is that it gives you more cantrips that deal more damage to the enemy, and this is necrotic damage. Remember that the necrotic damage is amazing because they prevent from enemies healing back. So if you're fighting something that it's constantly healing, you can use your Death Domain Cleric to prevent from them to heal. But also they added a homebrewed ability that allows you to explode corpses. So yeah, that's actually kind of amazing. But yeah, this is something homebrewed. Then we have the Druid, the Circle of Stars, and this basically what gives you, it gives you the starry forms, and it's 3 of them. You basically have the Archer, and also the Life-Giving Chalice, and the Wise Dragon. The Archer allows you to deal radiant damage with your astral arrows. The Life-Giving Chalice, it focuses on healing. And also the Wise Dragon, which I think it's going to be very powerful, especially if you use some certain specific accessories that you have access in the game. Basically, you add your Constitution modifier to your damage rolls. And on top of that, if you can combine the actual base modifier on top of this, this is just going to be something very powerful, because Constitution, it's amazing. Then we have the Paladin, Oath of the Crown. The Paladins are always natively very powerful, and this guy is just going to give you the Righteous Clarity, which basically turns your Paladin into a tank because it has aggro. Not only that, but you also have the Divine Allegiance. Basically every time that your allies receive damage, you can absorb that damage while also restoring their health back. So this is something that I believe that it adds a little bit more flavor to the Paladin than the rest of the oaths that you have on the base of the game right now. And remember that this is true for every single class. If you multi-class them and take advantage of these extra abilities, it just makes them more and more powerful. As a matter of fact, the Paladin and one of the classes that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on are just going to make the most powerful broken class that you have ever seen on Baldur's Gate. But first, let's actually talk about the fighter, the Arcane Archer. Well, the fighters have always been amazing archers. And as a matter of fact, I usually prefer, if I'm going to have an archer on my crew on any of my given playthroughs, I'd rather make them fighters, because remember that fighters can attack up to 12 times if they want to in a single turn. If you combine that with the Arcane Archer, that gives you the arcane new arrows that do a whole bunch of things, like for example removing a enemy from the battlefield for a whole turn by sending them into a different plane. But also, one of the cool things about this guy is that it has new animations and it has new arrows that they can move throughout the battlefield, evading obstacles. But also, if you miss one shot on one enemy, you can use one of the new skills from the Arcane Archers, or the new features of the Arcane Archers, that this arrow bounces back to a different target if you missed the original one that you were trying to hit. Then we have the Drunken Master, and if you have played the monk, they are very, very powerful, especially if you use them with Tavern Brawler and Strength. These guys can be very, very powerful. Now, the good thing about these guys is that they are going to be, you have to be drunk to taking the most advantage out of this class. What this is going to essentially do is that you're going to be able to recover your key points by drinking. Remember that drinking, that's an extra something that you are going to have to be looking for. So on inns, you are going to have to be purchasing those beverages. But have in mind that it's very, very easy if you have like a thief on your crew. And also remember that using them requires an action point, so you're not actually losing anything natively in battle, so you're just boosting your character on a huge amount, because you can use Intoxicating Strike to the enemies. It buffs you, it buffs your armor class, which is just so amazing, but also it makes them, I believe that you can make advantage hits on them. But not only that, you can use the Sovereign Realization that on those drunken targets that you made for them to be drunk, and it deals the physical damage. On top of that, with a Tavern Brawler, which would be very powerful, you can add psychic damage to that. That's very cool, dude. Moving on, we have the Ranger, the Swarmkeeper. This is one of the ones that I'm less interested about. It sounds cool. Like, basically you have 3 new types of swarms that are going to deal several different things that are like kind of nice. Like for example, the Cloud of the Jellyfish, which is going to deal extra lightning damage. That is more DPS, of course, and if you multi-class it with a Sorcerer that benefits the Storm Sorcerer, this could be a very, very cool class. And then we have the Flurry of Moths. They deal psychic damage, and also they blind the enemies. Remember that blinded enemies have a disadvantage against all of the characters that they are fighting, because they are blinded, so this is very, very powerful indeed. And also you have the Legion of Peace. So whenever you deal damage to an enemy, you deal more piercing and force damage, but also they have to do a strength saving throw or be knocked back 15 feet. Dude, that's amazing. Then we have the Swashbuckler for the Rogue. What this guy does is basically everything that resembles this guy. It's just like, that's it, fighting. You can toss sands to the enemies to blind them. Then again, remember that blinding enemies is very, very powerful. If you blind an enemy, you are going to have an advantage against them, while they are going to have disadvantage whenever they attack to you. And also you can disarm them by throwing your weapon at them. And also you can use fancy footwork, which I do not like that much. It's not really that amazing, dude. It's basically you can fight without provoking attacks of opportunities, but you also already have disengage, so there's like nothing really special about this one right here. Now this But this is the one that I'm going to take the most time to talk about, the Shadow Magic Sorcerer. And it has amazing things, but one of the things that I'm so happy is that they added some kind of a different special rule set to this. Let me elaborate, let me explain. These guys have superior dark vision. You can cast superior dark vision to see through your own magical darkness. This is something that cannot be done on the base of the game. This is something that also confuses a lot of players. When I was making my builds, a lot of people were confused about how this works, and yes, it can be confusing. Essentially, you have the dark vision and the superior dark vision that allows you to see through darkness. There's a very powerful feature by abusing of magical darkness that is banned from several D&D players or places where players play. Like the DMs usually ban this because it's very powerful. So essentially what magical darkness does is that it doesn't allow for spells to go inside, and everything inside there it's blinded. But there's ways to bypass that by, for example, Devil's Sight. There are not many enemies in the game that have Devil's Sight, so 90% of the things, only demons are going to have Devil's Sight, and more often than not, only on the House of Raphael you are going to fight enemies that are going to have Devil's Sight. That is why Warlocks are very powerful and very broken, and usually people homebrews them on their tabletops games because it's just so powerful to have the magical darkness and only have people that have Devil's Sight being able to fight against them properly. Superior Dark Vision does not work on magical darkness. In here, with the Sorcerer of the Shadow Magic, Superior Dark Vision is going to allow you to see through your very own magical darkness. Meaning that you can have your Sorcerer inside of that magical darkness, nothing can come, no spell can come inside of it, but he's going to be able to fight from inside of it towards the outside. And usually how it works in Baldur's Gate is that people do not enter into the magical darkness because it's a guaranteed debuff, so you plant your character right there, and you can also extend that with the sorcery points with your Sorcerer. So this is very powerful, especially if you multi-class it to, for example, a Paladin. The only one character that would be able to fight and be proficient against a Sorcerer would be a Hexadin, because of the same reason that I'm telling you. If you make a Hexadin, you make a multi-class between a Warlock and a Paladin that has Devil's Sight. He can cast the magical darkness and see inside of the magical darkness. Everything that's inside, it's going to be very difficult for you to receive damage because everything inside of it is going to have disadvantage against you. So you can be using smites inside of that magical darkness to kill the hell out of everything. If you now make a multi-class of a Sorcerer for the Shadow Magic with a Paladin, you have a Sorcerer that can upcast the smites like a huge amount. Like, for example, you make a Paladin level 5 for the extra attack, and then you take the rest of the levels into the Sorcerer for the Shadow Magic. You basically have a combination of a Hexa Warlock something very... It's just going to be so broken and powerful, dude. And then we have the Hexblade for the Warlock, and this makes a pact with the entity from the Shadowfell that gives you the magical weapons. Now, the cool thing about this guy, remember that the Warlock is already very powerful if you abuse the darkness in here. It's one of the most broken classes in Baldur's Gate because of that precise fact. But also, if you kill something that is not an element of nature, a construct, a zombie, something that is already dead, you can raise them, a spirit, from their corpse for 10 turns. This is a summon that can deal damage for you, and it's also going to be dealing necrotic damage. Remember that when you deal necrotic damage, they cannot heal back, so this is very powerful, but also it's going to be healing back your Warlock, which is, then again, combined with darkness, very powerful. And then finally, the one thing that everyone wanted, we have made this with several mods in here in the channel in the past. Now it's on the vanilla game thanks to the patch that's going to be releasing tomorrow. Basically, you have the Wizard Bladesinging. The Bladesinging, it's your spell blade. It has new animations, which is very cool, but also you have the Blade Song ability. It gives you supernatural speed, agility, and focus. You have new animations for casting, but what makes this thing very powerful and very broken is the fact that it gives you natively +4 armor class. It cannot be used, however, with light armor, medium armor, and heavy armor, which is, in my opinion, something very good to balance, because if you use exotic material medium armor with this thing, you can reach 30 armor class without having to struggle that much, so it would break this character by huge amounts. But still, you can still use the mage armor alongside with this, and also learn the shield from the mage that gives you, as a reaction, 5 levels into armor class. So you already had 9 levels of armor class, and then you have the armor from the mage armor. And if you raise your agility, because that's the main stat that you're going to be using with this character, for your lighter weapons that you are going to be using, you can get much more armor class from that. So it sounds like you can build a spell mage that it's going to have 30 armor class. It's going to have amazing potential for melee, while also being able to cast very, very powerful spells without having to multi-class. This guy is going to be very, very powerful. Anyways, if you like the content, like and never super appreciate it. And also that you're gorgeous and beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful, beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, join the Discord. Have a beautiful day and goodbye.